بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه.
We start with the name of Allah and we praise Him for the endowments that He bestowed upon us. And we ask Allah to raise the rank of our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him.
كنا تكلمنا أمس في موجبات الغسل وذكرنا آخرها الحيض والنفاس.
Yesterday we spoke about the matters that make the ghusl obligatory, and the last two matters that we spoke about was the menses and the postpartum bleeding.
وذكرنا أن أقل الحيض والنفاس لحظة.
And we mentioned that the minimum duration of the postpartum bleeding and the menses is 1 moment.
الحيض بالنسبة للحيض هو لحظة للمبتدأ، يعني أول مرة يأتيها تعتبره حيض.
When, in regards to the menses, when she first sees the menses, even if it is a moment, then she judges this as menses.
أما المعتادة ذكرنا أنه تعتمد عادتها، وإن تمادى فوق عادتها تستظهر عليه 3 أيام.
In regards to the woman who has a habitual duration of menses, then we said that if it surpasses this habitual duration, then she would add 3 more days in order to verify that this is menses.
بشرط أن لا يتعدى العادة والاستظهار 15 يوما.
And this is with the condition that the normal or the habitual duration of menses, as well as those 3 additional days of istidhar, verification, do not surpass 15 days.
وذكرنا أن الطهر أقله 15 يوما.
And we mentioned that the minimum purity is 15 days.
وذكرنا أنه إذا كان عندها يوم نقاء أو أيام نقاء بين الدمين تعتبره طهر كامل صحيح.
And we also mentioned that the woman, if she has a day or 2 days or several days of purity between the bleeding or between the intervals of bleeding, then she judges this period of time as a time of purity.
تعمل فيه سائر العبادات أكيد بعد الغسل.
She would perform during this purity the worships, of course, after fulfilling the ghusl.
وإن عاودها الدم ذكرنا أنها لا تعتبر أن تلك العبادات ما صحت لها كالصيام والطواف مثلا.
And if the blood then returns, she would not say that those worships that she did are not considered valid, such as the fasting and the tawaf.
ما أريد تبيينه الآن بعد تذكيركم بما ذكرنا أمس أننا قلنا إن الطهر أقله 15 يوما، وهذه الأيام التي هي نقاء بين الدمين طهر، لكن هذه الأيام لا تحسب من 15 يوما الذي هو نقاء، الذي هو لابد منه ليحسب أنها عندها طهر كامل.
We said that the minimum purity between the menses is 15 days. And we also said that the duration of the non-bleeding interval between when she bleeds, if there are days or a day or a few days of non-bleeding or purity, then she also considers this as a duration of purity. However, this would not be considered from those 15 days.
وضحت؟
Is that clear?
نعم. إذن أيام الطهر التي هي أقلها الطهر الذي هو أقله 15 يوما لا يكون مفرقا، لا بد أن يكون 15 يوما طهر كامل مجتمع ليس فيه دم بالمرة.
The minimum of the 15 days of purity, that would entail that there is no bleeding during this interval of time at all. It is not something that is interrupted or non-contiguous. Rather, it must be continuous 15 days of purity.
أيام الحيض تلفق، يعني جاءها يوم ثم يوم انقطع ثم يوم ثم انقطع يومين، تجمع مع بعضها حتى تجمع أيام عادتها. أما الطهر لا يلفق.
Regarding the menses, it is something that can be added together, meaning if she has a day of bleeding and then a day where she is not bleeding, then the following day she is bleeding, she would, even if they are non-contiguous, she would add them together for the menses. However, regarding the time for purity, she would not add that together.
يعني تلك الأيام وإن قلنا حكمها حكم الطهر وتصح عباداتها به، لكن لا تحسب في أيام الطهر الذي لا بد منه بين الحيضتين.
Although we said that this purity, if she has a day or two, for example, where she is not bleeding, is considered a purity and she can perform the worships during this time, this amount of time is not considered from the time of the minimum 15 days of purity that is between two menses.
يعني حتى تقول الامرأة جاءها حيض جديد لابد أن يكون مضى في أيام نقائها 15 يوما على الأقل بدون انقطاع، بدون تخلل دم بين هذه الأيام. إن جاءها هذا الدم الجديد هو حيض جديد.
In order for a woman to say that she has a new menses, a new menstrual cycle, then there needs to be 15 days of non-bleeding, a 15-day interval continuous of non-bleeding.
يعني وهذا كما ذكرت لكم لا يمنع أن أيام النقاء التي بين الدمين هي حكمها حكم الطهر، تعتبر يوم طهر تصح به العبادات، لكن لا يحسب كما ذكرنا.
And like what we mentioned, this does not contradict what we mentioned, that the time in which she is not bleeding, even if it is for a day or a two, is still considered a time of purity. However, it is not counted from those 15 days of minimum purity between two menstrual cycles.
إن شاء الله يكون واضح.
Inshallah, this is clear.
فروض الغسل 5.
The integrals of ghusl are 5.
الأول النية.
The first is the intention.
النية كما في الوضوء.
In the intention similar to al-wudu.
لا يشترط أن تكون متقارنة بأول صب الماء.
It is not a condition that it would be simultaneous with the first pouring of the water.
ولو تقدمت بيسير أجزأت.
Even if it were to precede the first washing by a short period of time, it is sufficient.
فإن قام شخص من مجلسه وذهب للمغتسل وبدأ بصب الماء، نيته التي كانت عنده عند قيامه كفته.
So if a person wanted to perform ghusl, he was sitting and he stood up because he intended to perform al-ghusl, and he went to the place of making ghusl in his house, for example, and he pours the water, he does not need a new intention when pouring the water, when first washing his body. That initial intention that he made when he stood up suffices.
هذا يعني في البيوت كم يكون الوقت بين قيامه ووصوله للمغتسل وبدئه بالغسل؟ وقت قصير. هذا الوقت القصير يكفي فيه النية المتقدمة.
Within one's own home, how long of a period of time is it between the moment that he stands up, for example, to make ghusl with the intention of making ghusl, and between the time he actually reaches the place of ghusl in his house? This is a short period of time. So if he has the intention to perform al-ghusl when he stood up, this would suffice in being slightly preceding the initiation of the ghusl.
لا يحتاج أن يشوش نفسه ويقول أنا نويت عند بدء صب الماء ما نويت، أعيد نية مرة جديدة، ويجلس في المغتسل نصف ساعة وهو يحاول أن ينوي ويستحضر النية عند صب الماء، صحت لي ما صحت لي. هذا كله لا حاجة له عندهم.
By this, he would not need to disturb himself or bother himself when reaching the place of ghusl and contemplate, did I actually make the intention while I started washing my body, or did I have the intention before? Because it is valid if he has the intention slightly before, so he would not need to be in this situation of confusion.
ليس معنى ذلك أن ما قاله الشافعية إنه يجب استحضار النية عند صب الماء هذا يؤدي للوسوسة وللتشويش، بل لأن الناس ما فهموا مراد الشافعية بهذا، يتشوشون ويتوسوسون.
However, what we mentioned does not imply or does not indicate that what the Shafi'is mention from that one must have the intention simultaneous with the initiation of the washing. This does not mean that this is actually something that should lead to confusion or to disturbance or to waswas. Rather, many people did not understand the meaning of what the Shafi'is mentioned pertaining to this matter.
الشافعية لما قالوا يجب استحضار النية أو تجب النية عند أول صب الماء، ليس مرادهم أنه لا بد أن يجري لفظا معينا جملة معينة في قلبه عند صب الماء، ليس هكذا.
When the Shafi'is mention that one must have the intention simultaneous with the first washing of the body, with the initial washing of the body, then this does not mean that he must run a specific statement upon his heart.
إنما مرادهم أنه لما يكون بدأ بصب الماء يكون مستحضرا أنه الآن يغتسل يصب الماء للغسل وليس للنظافة وليس للتبرد لأنه في حر مشوب بده يبرد حاله، إنما عم بصب الماء للغسل. هذا إن كان مستحضره عند صب الماء هذه النية حصلت.
Rather, what they meant by having the intention simultaneous with the initial washing the body or the beginning of the pouring of the water, what is meant by this is that one would have present in his heart that he is performing the ghusl, not merely that he is, for example, just cleaning himself or doing so to cool his body down. Rather, the aim that he had present in his heart at the moment of the beginning of the washing was that he wanted to perform the obligatory ghusl. So this would be sufficient.
وهذا يكون موجودا عند الناس إن أرادوا الغسل الواجب وبدأوا بصب الماء، إذا سألهم أحد أنت ماذا تريد أن تفعل؟ يقول الغسل. إذن النية موجودة. الذي يشوش الناس أنهم يريدون أن يجروا عبارة في قلبهم أثناء صب الماء، وهذا ليس واجبا عند الشافعية، ليس واجبا حتى.
Had a person been asked while he is first pouring the water, what are you doing? He would know that this is, he would know what to answer it, and he would say, I am doing this to perform the obligatory ghusl. Therefore, the intention is actually present in his heart. And so this actually having the intention simultaneous with the initial washing of the body, this is not something that leads to confusion or disturbance, but rather what causes the confusion and the disturbance is that many people, they want to run a specific statement across their heart or upon their heart. And this is what leads to the confusion.
وعلى هذا يعني من كان مصابا بهذه العلة أنه يتشوش ويقول أنا أريد أن أستحضر ما استحضرت ولعلي ما ذكرت، يأخذ بقول المالكية أنني هذا حصلت معي عند قيامي أصلا.
Therefore, the one who's afflicted with such an illness of confusion and being afflicted with such thoughts, did I have the intention simultaneous with the washing, the first washing of the body, or did I not have it simultaneous? Instead of him being confused, he can just take by the saying, of the Malikis that when I stood up to go make ghusl, I had the intention present in my heart, and that is sufficient.
الفرض الثاني من فروض الغسل النية تعميم جميع البدن بالماء.
The second integral from the integrals of ghusl is to encompass the whole body with water.
الثالث الفور وهو الموالاة.
And the third is immediacy. Here it is translated, which is succession. Perhaps a better word is continuity or being consecutive. Succession might imply that it has to be in a specific order.
يعني يفعل غسله كله في وقت واحد من غير فاصل طويل. هذا معناه.
What is meant by this integral is that one needs to perform the ghusl at once without a long period of time interrupting the ghusl, the parts of the ghusl.
كما ذكرنا تفصيله كما ذكرنا في الوضوء.
And its detail is as what we mentioned pertaining to wudu.
الفصل اليسير مغتفر لا يؤثر.
The short gap or the short interruption is excused.
وكذلك إن نسي جزءا من أعضائه لم يغسله وتذكر ولو بعد فاصل طويل يغسل هذا الجزء فقط وليس عليه أن يعيد الغسل من أوله.
And likewise, if someone forgot to wash a specific part of his body and a long period of time then lapses, it is enough for him to go back to washing that specific part that he missed washing.
ما سمعت. نعم. إذا نسي وترك عضوا عندما يتذكر ولو بعد فاصل طويل يغسل هذا العضو فقط. هو الموالاة لأنها واجبة مع الذكر والقدرة دون العجز والنسيان كما ذكرنا في الوضوء. الرابع الدلك أي لجميع البدن كما ورد معنا في الوضوء أيضا الدلك لا يكفي صب الماء من غير إمرار يد على قول على المشهور عندهم وكذلك في الغسل على المشهور من المذهب أنه لا بد من الدلك ولا يكفي صب الماء من غير إمرار نحو اليد على الأعضاء.
The fourth integral for ghusl is rubbing, that is the entire body. Similar to the details we mentioned regarding al-wudu, that it is not sufficient, according to what is the famous, the most widespread saying, it is not sufficient for one to merely pour the water. Rather, one must rub, meaning use his hand. He passes his hand on the parts that he is washing to help make the water reach all of those parts. This is an integral according to the famous or the most widespread saying amongst the Malikis.
وبعضهم قال لا يجب الدلك.
And we mentioned that some of them said that the rubbing is not obligatory.
المهم أن يكون تحقق أن الماء وصل لجميع البدن.
Rather, what is important according to the other saying is that he verifies that the water has reached all of the parts of the body that need to be washed.
الدلك في الوضوء واضح معروف يمكن أن تدلك كل الأعضاء. في الغسل وسط الظهر كيف تدلكه؟ اليد أحيانا لا تصل لمواضع في الجسد كيف يدلكها؟
Rubbing the different parts of the body in al-wudu is something easy because one can reach all of those parts during al-wudu with his hand. However, when it comes to ghusl, washing the whole body and rubbing the whole body, there are parts of the body that one is usually not able to reach with his hand, such as the middle of his back. So how would he rub such areas?
من قال بوجوب الدلك قال يستعين بنحو منديل مثلا أو بمن يدلك له.
Those who said that the rubbing is obligatory said that this person would use the aid of a cloth, a rag, for example, or someone assists him in rubbing this part of his body.
وبعضهم يقول ما لا تصله يده سقط وجوب دلكه.
And others said that which the parts of the body that his hand cannot reach, then this part of the body is not obligatory to rub.
الخامس تخليل الشعر ولو كان كثيفا بالماء.
And the fifth is parting the hair with water, even if the hair was thick.
في الوضوء ذكرنا أن اللحية وشعور الوجه بشكل عام إن كانت كثيفة يكفي المسح على ظاهرها من غير تخليل. في الغسل لا يوجد هذا. في الغسل لا بد من التخليل ولو كانت اللحية كثيفة.
We said in al-wudu, if one's beard is thick, and likewise the hair of the face has the same judgment. If it is thick, then it is sufficient for one to wash the outer part of this hair, and it is not a condition for him to streak his fingers through the hair to make the water reach the skin that is underneath this thick hair. However, when it comes to al-ghusl, this is not the case. Rather, in al-ghusl, one must make sure that he has the water parted throughout the hair, meaning he uses his hand to streak the water through the hair to make sure that the water reaches the parts that are underneath his hair.
في الوضوء قالوا ذلك تخفيفا، الشرع خفف لأن هذا شيء متكرر 5 مرات في اليوم أو أكثر أحيانا. أما في الغسل ليس شيئا متكررا.
And this was mentioned because in al-wudu, this detail is present in al-wudu because for the purpose of ease, since al-wudu is something that occurs repeatedly throughout the day, sometimes 5 times a day or more or less. As for al-ghusl, this is not something that is as frequent.
فصل شروط الطهارة.
Then a new section regarding the conditions for purification.
الطهارة نعم. لم يصله الماء. هذا الذي ذكرته هذا كأنه حكمه حكم النسيان، فيغسل هذا الموضع فقط ولا يغسل كل البدن، لكن لا بد من نية جديدة لهذا الموضع، وهو النية موجودة. يعني هو لما يريد إعادة غسله؟ لأنه علم أنه لم يصح رفع الجنابة عن هذا الموضع، لهذا يصب الماء، فالنية موجودة.
Like what was mentioned previously, if a person performed ghusl and then he forgot to wash a part of the there was a barrier. He saw that there was later on he noticed that there is a barrier that was covering a specific spot of the body that as a result was not washed. Then what he would do is he would go back to that part of the body and he would wash that part that he missed washing, and he would have the intention, and the intention is acquired anyways, since what is the purpose of him washing this part? Isn't it to lift the janaba from this part of the body? Then this would suffice.
يوجد فارق قليل بين الوضوء والغسل في هذه المسألة. في الوضوء ماذا ذكرنا؟ أنه إن نسي عضوا موضعا صغيرا لم يغسله وتذكر عن قرب، ماذا قلنا؟ تذكرون؟ يغسل هذا العضو ويكمل ما بعده ندبا سنة. في الغسل لا يوجد، يغسل هذا العضو فقط ولو تذكر عن قرب.
Regarding the one who forgot to wash a specific part of the body, in al-wudu and ghusl, there's a slight difference here between al-wudu and al-ghusl. We said that in al-wudu, if one forgets to wash a specific part of the body and then he forgets afterwards, if the amount of time between the completion of what he thought was a complete wudu and when he remembered that he missed a part of the part that needs to be washed in al-wudu, if that amount of time was a short period of time, then we said he washes that part that he missed, and it is recommended to do what is after that. However, when it comes to al-ghusl, he just washes the part that he missed.
وهو غسل ما بعد هذا العضو في الوضوء سنة ليس واجبا.
And washing that part after what one missed, after washing what one missed, washing what is after that, it is recommended and not obligatory.
أما الغسل لأنه يعني فيه مشقة زائدة على الوضوء فقالوا يغسل هذا فقط لا يسن أن يغسل ما بعده من سائر الأعضاء.
However, because al-ghusl does have additional hardship over that of al-wudu, they said it is not an obligation for him to wash what is after the part that he missed in al-ghusl. He just washes that specific part that he missed in al-ghusl.
نعم. هو لما أراد أن يبدأ بالغسل أليس كان ما زال مستحضرا أنه يغتسل الآن للغسل الواجب أو نسي ظن نفسه يغتسل فقط لينظف نفسه قبل أن يخرج من البيت؟
So regarding this question, the question was if someone stood up to make ghusl, his intention was to perform ghusl, he went to the place of ghusl in his house, for example, the bathroom, and he immediately made ghusl. It's understood that this intention was sufficient. But what if he goes to the place of ghusl in his house is the bathroom, for example, and before he performs ghusl, he does different things like brushing his teeth and the like before he actually performs the ghusl? Is this considered? Would this be looked at? Would this be a long period of time? The Shaykh responded and said that didn't he, when he started washing himself, wasn't his intention ghusl? Or did he forget completely what his intention was and all he intended by washing his body was just to clean himself? So if he had the intention when he washed his body, then this is sufficient. That means the intention is still present.
لكن هم الفقهاء يمثلون أنه إن قام من مكانه وليس له نية إلا الغسل الواجب، ليس له نية أخرى يريد أن يفعل كذا وكذا والغسل الواجب، ليس له إلا الغسل الواجب، قالوا تكفي تلك النية عند قيامه. ولو خرج من بيته للحمام السوق الذي هو قريب من بيته كفت النية التي كانت في البيت.
And they mentioned that if one made the intention when he stood up, so that when he got up so that he can go perform ghusl, that was his intention, then this intention suffices for him. They said even if he were to leave his home to go to the communal bathhouse to perform the ghusl that is close to his house, that intention that he made when he got up is sufficient if he only intended performing the obligatory ghusl.
شروط الطهارة قلنا الإسلام. الطهارة قسمان: طهارة عن النجاسة وطهارة عن الحدث. الشروط الموجودة هنا هي شروط الطهارة عن الحدث وليس عن النجاسة.
The author, may Allah have mercy upon him, said that the conditions for purification are, and he mentioned al-Islam. And it is important to know that purification is of two types. There is purification from the najas filth, and there is purification from the ritual impurity. The conditions that are mentioned here are regarding the purification from the ritual impurity.
أولها الإسلام.
The first condition is Islam.
يعني لا الطهارة عن الحدث معناه الوضوء أو الغسل.
And the purification from the ritual impurity would mean wudu or ghusl.
لا يصح الوضوء ولا الغسل بدون الإسلام.
Wudu and ghusl would not be valid without Islam.
يستثنون من ذلك غسل الامرأة الكافرة بعد الانتهاء من الحيض حتى تحل لزوجها.
They exclude from that the blasphemer woman who takes a ghusl at the termination, after the termination of her menses, so that she would be permissible for her husband to enjoy.
هي ليست مسلمة ولا يحل لزوجها جماعها إلا بعد الغسل من الحيض أو النفاس. فكيف يصح؟ قالوا هذا مستثنى مع أنها ليست مسلمة.
She is not a Muslim, she is a blasphemer, and she had the menses or the postpartum bleeding, and it would not be permissible for her husband to enjoy her without her, if she's in the state of menses or postpartum bleeding. So how would she be permissible for her husband? They said this is a case that is excused. She would make the ghusl after the menses. She would perform a ghusl after the menses so that she would be permissible for her husband.
والتمييز كذلك من شروط الطهارة عن الحدث التمييز. يعني لا يصح من الصبي الغير مميز أن يتوضأ ولا أن الوضوء ليس له عليه غسل.
And the second condition is mental discernment. Therefore, if there is a child who did not reach the age of mental discernment, then it would not be valid from him. The purification, such as ghusl or wudu, would not be valid from him.
التمييز بعض الفقهاء قالوا معناه يفهم الخطاب ويرد الجواب.
Regarding mental discernment or mental discrimination, some of the scholars, they said that this refers to when the child can understand when being addressed and can respond properly when being questioned.
وبعضهم قال هو يستطيع أن يستقل بقضاء الحاجة وتنظيف نفسه بعد قضاء الحاجة.
And others said that this is when he is able to be independent when it comes to relieving himself using the bathroom, for example, and eating and drinking and the like.
وهو مختلف هذا ليس له عمر محدد مختلف بالأطفال فيما بينهم. بعض الأطفال يصير مميزا بالسادسة بعضهم بالسابعة بعضهم بالثامنة لكن قريب من هذه الأعمار.
And the age of mental discernment varies amongst the children. Some children, they reach this stage when they are 6 years old. Some of them when they are 7. Some of them when they are 8. However, it is approximately in this, around close to this age, these ages that were mentioned.
أما الطهارة عن النجاسة لا يوجد فيها هذان الشرطان. ولو صبي صغير ابن سنة صب الماء على الموضع المتنجس فذهبت النجاسة وجرى الماء النقي عليه طهورة.
However, when it comes to removing the najasa, purification from the najas filth, these two conditions, Islam and mental discernment, are not conditions. These two are not conditions for the removal of the najas filth. Therefore, if there was a spot that was contaminated with najas filth and a young child who is not even at the age of mental discernment were to have poured water, pure and purifying, pure water on the spot that was contaminated and the contamination was purged, was removed, then this would suffice for purifying that spot.
وكذلك بالنسبة للكافر لو طهر شيئا نجسا صحت الطهارة.
And likewise regarding or pertaining the blasphemer, if the blasphemer were to have purified a spot that was contaminated with najas filth, then this would suffice.
وعدم المانع من وصول الماء إلى المغسول.
And there must be nothing preventing the water from reaching the part that needs to be washed.
الدهن ليس مانعا. يعني لو كان على اليد زيت مثلا أو بعض الأدهان دهن الخروع دهن الخردل لا يشترط أن يغسل بالصابون أولا حتى يذهب أثر الدهن ثم يتوضأ. الدهن ليس مانعا من وصول الماء.
The oil is not considered a barrier that prevents the water from reaching the spot that needs to be washed. Therefore, if someone had oil on the part that needs to be washed on his hand, for example, or he had mustard oil, for example, or the like, it is not a condition that he would have to remove this oil with the likes of soap first before washing the spot.
والسيلان يعني أن يجري الماء بطبعه.
And the next condition is flowing water on the part that needs to be washed.
ليس معنى ذلك أنه لا بد أن يجري بطبعه بدون مساعدة اليد على كل جزء صغير من البدن. ليس هذا المعنى.
It doesn't mean that the water would need to flow by its own nature to every single part of the body, even every single small part of the body, without using the aid of anything else. This is not what is meant.
إنما لما يقولون السيلان حتى يخرجوا ما قد يفعل من أن يبل قطعة قماش مثلا ويجريها على بدنه، هذا لا يكفي.
Rather, they mention this as a condition that the water must be flowing to exclude using the likes of a rag that one were to make wet, and using that to wash the part that needs to be washed. This would not be valid.
أو يغمس يده في الإناء ثم يمسح وجهه به، ولو مسح كل وجهه لا يصح لأنه لا يوجد سيلان بالمرة.
Or he submerged his hand in water and then he removed his hand from this water and he used his wet hand to wipe his entire face. This would not be sufficient for washing the face because the water did not flow in this case.
لكن ليس معناه أنه لا بد أن يجري على كل قطعة من الوجه ومن اليد ومن الرجل، وإلا هذا يأخذ ماء كثيرا. نعم.
This does not, and of course, as we mentioned, this does not mean that the water needs to flow on its own to every single part of the face and every single part of the hands and forearms and the feet without using the aid of anything else.
الرسول عليه الصلاة والسلام كان يتوضأ بمقدار مد فقط، ملء كفين معتدلتين، فلو كان الماء لا بد أن يجري على كل الجسد بطبعه ما كان يكفي هذا الماء.
The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he used to perform wudu with one mud of water, that is what fills two average size hands cupped together. And so had it been a condition that the water had to flow on its own to every single part of the body that would need to be washed, then one mud of water would not have been sufficient for performing al-wudu.
مع السنن، هذا الماء يفعله مع السنن، مع المضمضة ومع الاستنشاق ومع غسل الوجه ثلاثا وكل يد ثلاثا ومسح الرأس وغسل الرجلين، هذا الماء كان يكفيه لكل هذا.
And this means when we say that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam made wudu with one mud of water, this means including the optional matters, the sunan of the wudu. So this would include washing his mouth, rinsing his mouth and rinsing his nose, as well as washing each part 3 times, as well as wiping the whole head. All of this was included, and he performed all of this alayhi salatu wassalam with one mud of water.
شيخنا رحمه الله كان عنده إبريق زجاج يوضع فيه ماء زمزم هكذا، يعني مقداره أقل من كوب البن الذي تعطونه هنا، ما شاء الله الفاميلي كبير، يسع نصفه. هذا الماء كان يتوضأ به لكل جسده ما سوى الرجلين، ويبقى منه يستعمل نصفه مع المضمضة ومع الاستنشاق ومع التسليس، يعني هذا القدر من الماء فقط يفعل كل وضوئه ما سوى الرجلين بماء الزمزم بهذا القدر.
Our Shaykh, may Allah have mercy upon him, he used to have a small glass pitcher in which he had Zamzam water in it. And the amount of water in it was, he mentioned, the Shaykh, a small amount of water that he indicated with his hands, similar to maybe half of the coffee cups that are used, half of this type of coffee cup, for example. Then he used to perform al-wudu with all of this, with this water, for all of his body except his feet, and there would still be some left over. And this is performing the wudu with the sunan.
ومع السيلان كان الماء يتقطر منه أثناء الوضوء.
And this
ليس مسح بدون سيلان.
And of course, this includes that he would make sure that the water flows on the parts that need to be washed. And so when he would make wudu, one would see the water dripping from the parts of the body that he washed.
نحن كنا عندما يغسل يده مثلا نضع يدنا تحت يده حتى الذي يتقطر ينزل عندنا نتبارك به. فهذا كان يتقطر يجتمع في يدنا الماء ومن وجهه.
Shaykh Muhammad says that when the Shaykh, rahimahullah, used to make wudu, they used to put their hands underneath the part that he washed so that they can gather the water that drips from this part that he washed and for the blessings. And they were able to gather this water in their hands, meaning the water was dripping from the parts of the body that he washed.
بنصف هذا الكوب مع التسليس ومع المضمضة ومع الاستنشاق.
Half of this cup, the amount that he used, with washing the mouth and rinsing the nose, as well as washing each part 3 times.
أما الرجلين كان يغسلهما ليس بماء الزمزم بإبريق آخر، يعني ليس هذا الماء.
As for the washing of the feet, he would not use the water of Zamzam. He would use another pitcher that he had with other water.
قال وأن يكون الماء مطهرا بأن لا يسلب اسمه بمخالطة طاهر يستغني الماء عنه. لابد أيضا من شروط الطهارة أن يكون الماء مطهرا بأن لا يسلب اسمه بمخالطة طاهر يستغني الماء عنه، أي امتزاج شيء طاهر كالحليب والحبر وشبه ذلك.
And the next condition is for the water to be purifying. That is, that the water has not been changed by being mixed with a pure material, such as ink, such as milk, ink, or the like, from which the water can easily be shielded from.
يعني إذا واحد كان عنده إناء ماء فنزل فيه نقطة حليب، إن غيرت له الحليب طاهر، إن غيرت هذه النقطة غيرت صفات هذا الماء، ولو كان ما زال يسمى طاهرا لكن ما عاد يمكن التطهر به، ما عاد يمكن الوضوء به ورفع الحدث به.
Therefore, if a person had a container of water and a drop of milk came into this container of water, although the milk is pure, if the water, the quality or the qualities of the water changes, then this water would no longer be sufficient for purification, although this mixture is still pure.
ما معنى التغير؟ غيرته معناه غيرت أحد أوصافه، لونه أو طعمه أو ريحه أو وزنه. إن تغير الوزن ولو لم تتغير الأوصاف كذلك يؤثر.
What does it mean for the water to change as a result of such substance? For one of its qualities to change, such as its color, such as its smell, or its taste, and also its weight. Its weight, if it changes, even if the other qualities do not change, then it would be considered that this water has changed.
والمراد بالتغيير التغيير الذي له بال، الذي يظهر، وإلا نقطة الحليب مثلا بلترين ماء إذا أخذناها للمختبر نجد أنه تغير، ليس هذا المعتبر. ونقطة الحليب التي مقدارها مثلا 1 ملي وإن كان الماء 2000 ملي تغير صار 2001. هذا التغير ليس له اعتبار. المراد التغير الذي له اعتبار ظاهر.
And the change that is given consideration is the apparent change. So if a person, for example, were to place 1 drop of milk into 2 liters of water, if one were to take this mixture to a lab, he would find that there is a slight difference. However, this is not an apparent difference. So this is not a difference that is given consideration. Likewise, if a drop of milk, which is 1 milligram, is added to a quantity of water that is 2,000 milligrams, yes, the total would now be 2,001 milliliters. Barakallahu feekum. If one were to take 1 milliliter of water and he places it into 2,000 of milk and places it into 2,000 milliliters of water, yes, there would be a very slight change. It would now be a total of 2,001 milliliters. However, this is not an apparent change, a change that is considerable, so it is not given weight. It is not given consideration. So the water would not be judged as being changed in this case.
يقول فلو تغير الماء به يعني بالطاهر كما ذكرنا بحيث لا يسمى ماء لم يصلح للطهارة. لا يسمى ماء يعني إذا قيل لك ما هذا لا تقول ماء فقط، تقول ماء مخلوط مع حليب، ماء مخلوط مع حبر، لا تقول مطلقا ماء. إن تغير إلى هذا الحد لا يصلح، ما عاد يصلح للطهارة.
If the water changes in such a way that it is no longer called water, using it for purification is invalid. Meaning, if one were to come to you and ask, what is this mixture, what is this, and you are not able to say water, you need to say water with ink or water with milk, you're not able to say water without any restriction, without any qualifying statement, then this water would no longer be sufficient for purification. And we're speaking again about if the water mixes with something that is pure, a pure substance.
وأما تغيره بما لا يستغني الماء عنه كأن يتغير بما في مقره أو ممره أو نحو ذلك مما يشق صون الماء عنه فلا يضر فيبقى مطهرا. يقول أما إذا كان التغير ليس بإضافة شيء إليه إنما تغير بما في مقره، هو مكانه الذي هو فيه تغير فيه، كأن كان في ماء بئر والأرض التي فيها شيء من الملوحة، فتغير ماء البئر بهذه الملوحة التي فيه. هذا ما تغير بإضافة شيء إليه، إنما هو هكذا خرج من ماء البئر بسبب أرض البئر مالحا قليلا. هذا لا يؤثر. الذي يؤثر هو التغير بإضافة شيء.
If, however, the water changes because of its mixing with materials which are in its original place, pathway, or the like, and from which the water cannot be easily shielded, the purifying property of the water is not affected, meaning it is still purifying. And so, meaning if the water did not change as a result of adding something to it, rather it changed as a result of something that was in its place, then this water is still pure and purifying, such as the well water that was present in a land that is salty land. The well water that is in a salty land, because of the nature of the land that it is in, the ground that it is in, then this water would emerge also slightly salty. So this saltiness of the water does not affect the purifying property of the water. It is still pure and purifying.
أو في ممره، يعني كان النهر يجري على أرض تربتها فيها شيء من الحمرة مثلا، فيتغير أحيانا عندما يجري في هذه البقعة يتغير لون الماء قليلا. هذا التغير أيضا لا يؤثر على بقاء الماء طهورا.
Likewise, if it were to change due to something in its pathway, if the water were to go through a land that is reddish in color, and because of that red land that it flows through, the water changed in color, then this water is still pure and purifying.
وكذلك بطول المكث أحيانا إذا عبى الإنسان أم ملأ بركة ماء وتركها شهرا وشهرين أحيانا يتغير لونها، يصير عليها خضرة خفيفة أو تتغير رائحتها أيضا بالمكث وليس بإضافة شيء، هذا أيضا لا يؤثر على بقاء الماء طهورا، يبقى طهورا.
And also the water might change in a change that would not affect its purifying properties because of it remaining somewhere for an extended period of time. If a person, for example, fills a certain amount of water, a pool of water, and he keeps it like that for an extended period of time, he would find after a period of time that there is perhaps a thin green layer on top of the water, or that its smell changes slightly due to remaining in the state for an extended period of time, for a long period of time. This does not affect the purifying property of the water. It is still pure and purifying.
لأنه لم يتغير بإضافة شيء إليه إنما تغير بنفسه.
Because it did not change as a result of something being added to it, rather it changed in itself.
يقول وألا يتغير بنجس ولو تغيرا يسيرا. أما إذا الذي كل ما ذكرناه إضافة حليب إضافة حبر هذا تغير بإضافة شيء طاهر. يقول أما لو تغير بإضافة شيء نجس تغير ولو كان التغير قليلا. ذكرنا أنه إذا كان بطاهر لا يصير غير مطهر إلا إن تغير تغيرا بحيث ما عاد يقال عنه ماء مطلق. أما بالنجس لا، بالنجس أي أدنى تغير يجعل الماء نجسا.
Furthermore, for the water to be purifying, it must not have changed even slightly due to contact with najas filth. When we spoke about the water mixing with some substance that is, with material that is pure, such as milk or ink or the like, we said that if the water changes to the extent that one would no longer be able to refer to this mixture as water without any restriction, then this water is no longer purifying, although it is pure. However, if the water mixes with a najas filth, even if the water changes slightly, then it becomes najas filthy, it is no longer purifying.
ولكن الفرق بينهم وبين المذهب الشافعية أنه إذا أضيف إلى الماء نجاسة عند الشافعي وكان الماء قليلا دون القلتين، يعني أقل من نحو 200 لتر، تغير أو لم يتغير تنجس. إذا كان كثيرا فوق 200 لتر لا يتنجس إلا إن تغير كما ذكرنا ولو تغيرا يسيرا. عندهم لا يوجد هذا، ما عندهم حكم للماء القليل وحكم للماء الكثير، هو حكم واحد، إن تغير تنجس وإن لم يتغير لم يتنجس ولو كان قليلا.
However, according to the school of Ash-Shafi'i, if one has a small amount of water that is less than 2 qullas, approximately less than 200 liters of water, if a unexempted najas filth were to come in contact with this water, then the water becomes najas filthy even if it does not change. However, if it is a large amount of water, it is 2 qullas or more, then according to them, if the water does not change, then it is still pure and purifying. And if it changes very slightly, then it becomes najas filthy. According to the Malikis, this difference in quantity of water does not exist regarding this matter. So according to them, whether the water is a small amount or a large amount, if najas filth comes in contact with this water and the water does not change, then it is still pure and purifying. But if it changes slightly, then it becomes najas filthy.
وسبحان الله والحمد لله رب العالمين والله سبحانه وتعالى أعلم. شوف الأسئلة إذا سمحت. نعم يصح.
Regarding, is it valid to use Zamzam water for ablution for the feet, for wudu for the feet? Yes, it is valid.
نعم لحظة.
ما المراد بالجسد كله في المذهب بالنسبة للغسل؟
كل الجسد.
The question, what is considered the entire body in the school for ghusl? The Shaykh said the entire body.
يعني واضح يعني معناه لا يدخل داخل العين ولا داخل الفم ولا داخل الأذن، لا يدخل هذا الظاهر.
He said what is apparent from the body, this is clear, it's not included here what's inside the eyes or inside the mouth or inside the ears.
إن تعدى 15 يوما تعتبر نفسها مستحاضة تصلي ولو مع نزوله.
There's a question, if a woman's bleeding exceeds 15 days, what is it considered and what should be done? In this case, she considers this to be istihada, sickness bleeding, and she prays.
نعم تفضل. لا تحتاج نية.
A question, what would the intention be of the non-Muslim woman, the kitabiyya, a Jew or Christian woman, after the cessation of her menses, for her to be permissible for her husband to enjoy her? What would her intention be when she does the ghusl? The Shaykh said that she does not need an intention. There's no intention. She does not need an intention.
بالظاهر على حسب الظن، يعني ينظر إليه تغيرت رائحته مبدوء يظن أنه لم يتغير طعمه يكفي.
If someone has 10 liters of water and a drop of urine falls into this water, how would one know that this water did not change as a result of that najas filth? According to what is apparent, if the qualities did not change apparently, according to what is apparent, then he judges this water as pure. It's not a condition that he has to taste the water, but it's enough that if apparently, according to what he observes, that it did not change, then this is sufficient.
هذه النقطة ب10 لتر بالزيادة بالوزن لا تؤثر، هذا شيء تأثر قليل لا يعتبر.
And this drop of urine compared to the 10 liters of water, when it comes to the weight, is something that is not given consideration.
نعم. هذا تغير ظاهر أليس هكذا؟ لكن أنا جربت أحيانا تكون الرائحة قوية، رائحة الكلور، لكن إن رفعت قليلا من الماء بيدك وشممت الماء نفسه لا تجد رائحة في الماء، فتكون الرائحة في الجو في الغرفة الذي فيها. أما إن أخرجت شيئا من الماء وشممت الماء نفسه، إن كان الماء متغيرا بالكلور إذا متغير بطاهر يمكن الاستغناء عنه، لا يصح التطهر به. لكن أنا أكثر من مرة جربت تكون الرائحة في الغرفة قوية، لكن إن أخذت شيئا من الماء نفسه وشممته من الماء نفسه وشممته لا تجد رائحة للماء.
There's a question about the water, the chlorine water, if that is sufficient for purification. The Shaykh mentions that more than once he has taken water from a pool of water that has chlorine in it. And when he takes it from the pool and he smells it, he notices that the smell of chlorine is not present. Rather, the smell of the chlorine is something that is present in the air that surrounds the water. And so, in this case, this water is sufficient for using for purification. However, if he were to take that water and he were to smell it and he can evidently smell the smell of chlorine, then this water would have changed due to a pure substance, so it would not be sufficient for purification.
نعم. هو لما يتكلمون عن الموالاة يريدون أن يغسل الأعضاء كلها في فور واحد، لا يريدون النية، لكن أيضا النية لا تصح إن كانت بينها وبين البدء فارق طويل.
When they speak about
يقولون النية تكفي عند البدء وقبل البدء بقليل وليس قبل البدء بكثير.
When speaking about continuity or immediacy, al-muwalat, when it comes to ghusl, is this regarding between the intention and washing the parts of the body, or is it regarding the washing of the different parts of the body, that there needs to be continuity between washing the different parts of the body? Usually what they are referring to when they speak about continuity is between washing the different parts of the body, that one would wash the different parts of the body at once, meaning in one interval of time without there being a long period of time, interval or gaps between washing the different parts of the body. However, yes, there cannot be a long period of time between the intention and washing the body, because as we said, the intention is valid if it is with the first washing and if it precedes it by a short amount of time. However, if the intention precedes by a long period of time, then this would not be sufficient.
نعم. نعم. يعتقد أن الماء وصل لكل الجسد. نعم.
There was a question about the rubbing when it comes to ghusl, and likewise al-wudu, that there's a saying that it is obligatory, and there's a saying that it is not obligatory if the person was to verify, was certain that the water reached all the parts of the body that needs to be washed. The question is, how does one know that the water reached all the parts of the body that need to be washed? Would this be based on certainty, or is it enough for the person to suppose that this occurred? It is enough if the person believes that the water reached every single part of the body that needs to be washed, then this would be sufficient. And this other saying is also a strong saying in the school.
نعم. نعم. الأدهان يعني التي تسمى زيوت، هو بالأصل زيت الزيتون هو يقال له زيت. أما ما نقول له نحن زيت اللوز وزيت الجوز وزيت السمسم، هذا بالأصل يقال له دهن اللوز، دهن الجوز. الزيت يطلق عن زيت الزيتون، لأجل هذا استعملت أنا الأدهان. وإلا حتى عند الشافعية نفس الشيء، هو ليس مانعا من وصول الماء، إلا إذا كان الدهن جامدا وكان متجمعا، فهذا شيء آخر.
The sister asked if also according to the Shafi'is, is oil also not considered a barrier? The answer is yes. And the Shaykh, he also spoke about the difference between the word zayt and duhun. Zayt originally in Arabic refers to only the olive oil. And what is referred to now as زيت السمسم and زيت الخردل and
اللوز
as زيت اللوز, the oil of the almond and the oil of the mustard and all these, and the sesame oil and the like. It should be called duhun in reality, but they call it zayt. So anyways, the zayt, the oils, if they are on one's body, this is not a barrier that prevents the water unless the oil has become solidified and it becomes gathered and solidified, then this would become a barrier.
إذا كان جامدا، أما إن ذاب هو كالزيت صار حكمه. نعم.
The Hajj Abu Salah asked about the ghee. The ghee, if it melted like the oil, then this would also not be a barrier. But if it becomes solidified and gathered, then this would be a barrier.
ما يعمل طبقة يعني فوق الجلد يمنع من وصول الماء، هذا المانع. الزيت ليس هكذا، يشربه الجلد.
The thing that forms a barrier, a layer on top of the skin, then this is the barrier that prevents the water from reaching the part that needs to be washed. As for the oil, it does not perform a layer above the skin, rather the skin absorbs this oil.
نعم.
I can't hear you, brother. I can't hear you. Super glue? It doesn't come off easy when it's dry? What? If it's dry, it's difficult to remove, and that's...
نعم.
It's considered a barrier.
نعم.
You would have to remove it.
التي تسمى زيوت، نعم، أي دهن.
Anything that's considered, what's usually called oil, anything that's usually called oil.
بارك الله فيكم. ما بدكم تقوموا ترتاحوا شوي؟
نحلل.
لا إله إلا الله. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد.